Good evening, Redbirds. Welcome, welcome. We are just getting everybody into our webinar Zoom room. And once I see this number get up to where I think that it should be, we will begin. So you are hoping to listen in on the one of the summer historical tours. Specifically tonight is about our residence halls. You are in the right place. So we're just going to hang tight for just a little bit as we wait for some more folks to join us. So thank you for spending an hour of your evening with us. My name is Stephanie Duquesne, and I'm a director with Alumni Engagement, and just thrilled that you are here. Hi, Julia. So great to see you. So yes, while we're waiting for folks to join us, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're at. I'm on campus in Normal, so let us know. I know we've got several alums and folks joining us that are from all over the USA. Wow. So that's been a real bonus about this virtual space, is that our alumni from all over can join us. I see California, Pennsylvania. That's always exciting to see. I'm just waiting for more folks to come. We'll just get a few more ticks up here, and then we're going to get started. So again, welcome. If you're hoping to listen into the historical summer tour about our residence halls on Illinois State University campus, you are in the right space. So let's get excited. If you were able to join us in April for our historic quad tour, you know you're in for a treat. These summer tours that we are doing this series was decided on based on some feedback we got from our historic quad tour in April about some things that our alumni do want to hear about. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this. I see one of the questions is which residence halls we're going to be represented. We're definitely going to be touching on those that maybe are no longer with us. Our Barton, our Walker are done, and you'll hear some more history of some residence halls that aren't in existence too, and move along up into where we're at now, currently with our residence hall situation on campus. So you'll get a full gamut. Well, I think that we can go ahead and get started. I want to respect everybody's time. I know we've got a lot to talk about. Again, I am Stephanie Duquesne. I'm a director here in Alumni Engagement, Illinois State University, a two-time alum from the School of Communication. So I have also the honor of teaching in the School of Communication. I have been at the university I'm in my 13th year, so I'm very excited for you to be here with us tonight. And this is the first time I have heard a presentation like this about our residence hall, so I'm very excited. Tonight, our presenters are Barb Dallinger and April Anderson-Zorn. I'm going to introduce them now. Barb Dallinger is a Central Illinois native. She received both her bachelor's in music education and master's of science in education in college student personnel administration from Illinois State University. Employed by Illinois State for the past 30 years, she has worked in both the College of Fine Arts and various positions in the Division of Student Affairs, including University Housing Services, Campus Dining Services, the Bone Student Center, and currently oversees Braden Auditorium. Her title there is Associate Director for Events and Catering with Event Management, Dining, and Hospitality. Her achievements are large. They include being named Advisor of the Year, receiving the Distinguished Service Award, the Women in Communication Innovation Award, and the Neil R. Gamsky Quality of Student Life Award. Barb's one constant has been the passion and dedication she brings to each job and the enjoyment she has received working with our students. So please help me welcome Barb Dallinger to the screen. Also joining us tonight is April Anderson-Zorn. April Anderson-Zorn is a university archivist for Illinois State University. April earned a master's degrees in library and information science from Florida State University and in history from the University of Central Florida. She is a certified archivist through the Academy of Certified Archivists and holds a Digital Archive Specialist Certificate through the Society of American Archivists. April has also worked as an archives consultant, partnering with a number of academic institutions and companies to help set their archive programs up. Please help me welcome April Anderson-Zorn. Thank you, gals. I'm so excited. These are always such a joy. And that, I want to give everybody just some housekeeping. We are recording this session, so it will be posted on our virtual event post this event. Just in a couple days, it will be up there for you to rewatch, to share out there. As the presentation goes along, we're going to hold off on addressing questions until the end. But I will be monitoring those. So I'll be off screen, but I'll be monitoring your questions in the chat. So please don't be shy. Throw all those questions in the chat, and those questions that we don't, that April and Barb don't touch on, I'll make sure to pop back on screen towards the end and get those questions answered. So that's how you'll communicate with us, is through the chat. So don't be shy. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Barb and April. So please welcome Barb and April.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? So I'm going to get things going here in just a second, but I figured while I'm getting the PowerPoint presentation up, Barb and I just kind of want to also let y'all know, first of all, we banter, as we've been told, we banter. So keep that in mind, that we're going to try to keep this within the hour. We want to leave time at the end for your questions. So we're probably, as we do this, let's see, I think we can see the screen there. So as we do this, we recognize we're probably not going to hit, some details that maybe you remember about your residence halls, or, oh, they didn't mention this. Well, it's for time. We know a lot about residence halls, but it's for time. We're going to try to get to what we can get to. We'll definitely answer as many questions as we can at the end. And also, as we go through these slides, we're going to be talking, but the slides themselves are going to be showing a small mini slideshow of some photos that I've pulled from the University Archives, from the Photographic Services collection, taken largely by Nelson Smith, for those of you who might know who Nelson Smith is. So with that, I want to at least get us sort of oriented as to where we are. Let me back up just a little bit, where we are. In fact, the last time we did this presentation, we got some of us haven't been on campus in a while, and that's totally valid. So we kind of want to orient you as we walk through campus, and set up the scene and talk about these residence halls. So what you're looking at is, I just took a quick screenshot of Google Maps of the campus. You'll see where it says Illinois State University. That's approximately where the words Illinois State University are on the screen, is approximately where Bone Student Center and Milner Library is. And then when you go south, you start entering into the quad area, where we're going to touch on several of these buildings, current and past, that are no longer there. So that's currently where we're situated. And there's the quad right there. If you're trying to find the quad on the map, for those of you that remember the quad, there is the quad. But what we're going to start with is Fell Hall. So there's a little bit bigger shot of the quad, and there's where Fell Hall is, again, north, south, east, west, just like you would see on Google Maps. There's Fell Hall. And I'm going to let Barb, when the presentation decides that it wants to go to the next slide, I'm going to let Barb, there it goes, talk about Fell Hall.
Okay, thank you. Well, I am here and ready. I had my Avani's for dinner before to get in the mood, and I've got my Bone After Dark cup from my drink. I got my little Reggie. We are ready. So here's Fell Hall, built in 1918. Fell was our very first residence hall that we had formally. Here's a picture of what the rooms used to look like. The big thing is that when people moved into Fell Hall, they were charged $12 a week for their room and board. And $8 of that went to the food. And I'm sorry, Phil, I'm sorry, I did think of that was almost cruel. Then 4 weeks of it went to your board. So here's the great drawing room, like where the people used to gather and you could come down and see people. We have a handbook several of them actually in the archives, that talk about how you were to behave when you were in Phil Hall and when you were in the dining center, and when you had to wear gloves to dinner, and when you had to wear gloves and a hat, or when you could just be in a dress. That at one point in time, the cage here, you can see back there, it was a handy little social place that the students could go hang out, get a soda pop between class with their friends or whatever. That has traveled several places around campus. It's been in Fell Hall, it went to what we now call Old Union, that was the Union. Then what do we got here? Another outside picture. So the thing that is surprising when Fell Hall was built, times were tight here in the land of Lincoln. No, that's hard to believe.
No.
If you look at Fell Hall from the top, it almost makes a C or a U. Well, we only did the first 2 legs for like 90 years. It took 90 years to complete the thing. So in the meantime, we had these little barracks here that came up, and after the war, we had a real onslaught with the GI Bill, and that led to trying to get more opportunities. But yeah, it took us a long time to actually finish it, which a lot of people don't realize. Fell Hall has since been changed to an administrative building. In 1989, it was changed to an administrative building from a residence hall, and it houses some student services like academic advising and the accessibility office with their concerns, things like that. So the students do go there, and there are a few communication classes. I believe Stephanie possibly teaches in that building. That's a guess. And do I have another picture?
Nope, that's it for this one.
I don't. Okay. So that's Phil Hall. Started with just the girls because, you know, the girls needed a little more overseeing, and eventually the boys got invited. You teach in that building. Awesome. It's interesting because where the bathroom was, where one of the major bathrooms was, there's all these drinking fountains. As we had all this water, so we just put like 15 drinking fountains in a row down the hall.
So I'll also throw in real quick, those barracks that you see there, this was during the war. So we had overflow. We're trying to house our Navy V-12 program, which I'm actually going to touch on here in a second.
That's where the Navy V-12 lived.
Yeah, they lived here. And I believe this photo was taken not long before the roof of Fell Hall caught fire. I believe it was 43, 42, 43. It's not in front of me. I apologize, but it was during the war that this was the place along with Smith Hall where they were housing World War II, the Navy V-12 students / sailors who were getting trained. And now that was overflow, both overflow housing and overflow classrooms for those soldiers. But the roof caught fire not long after this picture was taken.
Nice. And Phil is correct. It did house International House. When I was an undergraduate, it was International House.
I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm terrible at watching chat. So y'all are going to have this whole separate conversation and I'm not going to know what's going on. So this picture that you see here, this is the quad that you can see up in that sort of just off center up in the top. There's the south end of the quad. Now, interestingly enough, if you go right now to Google Maps, what I'm showing you where that yellow circle is, this is actually the demolition shot the satellite took of South Campus when South Campus was going through demolition. So Hamilton-Witten had already been torn down at this point, and Akin-Colby was next on the slate. Now, the building that we're about to talk about was roughly placed where you see this circle. Smith Hall, which was purchased in 1939. And get to those photos. So this was Smith Hall. So it was situated sort of on that corner. It was purchased by the university in 1939. It was actually being rented out by the university in the early 1930s to serve as a men's dormitory. We didn't have a men's dormitory up to that point. Prior to that, it was Fell Hall for women. And even prior to that, you were living with your faculty professors in town. You were boarding with them. So this home was purchased and was being rented out by the university, a gentleman named Colonel D.C. Smith, who was a war veteran and a war hero in town from the Civil War. So they purchased it in 1939. Now, I'm hoping that this maybe reaches some Smith Hall residents. I know they're still out there. I've met a few in my time that lived in Smith Hall. We didn't have fraternities or sororities on campus at the time. But Smith Hall fellas really felt like they were a fraternity, to the point that they even had initiation ceremonies for incoming residents when they first came in, and
Oh,
only had enough beds for, say, 33, 35, upwards of 40, depending on what who you needed to stuff in there. They also were very competitive with the house decoration contest during homecoming every year, to the point that maybe some of the decorations were maybe a little bloody, chopping off heads of other mascots. It was a little much, but they competed well, and they won often when they participated in the house decorating contest. This photo that you see also, these are gardens that were that once were part of Smith Hall. And if you go down University Street now, where Office of Residential Life is, this very fountain can be found. It was restored. Steve Lancaster, who has since retired, found the fountain. It was sitting off in some university property somewhere, had it restored, and it now sits out in front with a little plaque of Office of University Life. So we do have a small piece of Smith Hall that's still with us. I also have a lot of scrapbooks from Smith Hall, which is where some of those photos came from. It's definitely a piece of our history. It was torn down in 1959 to make way for what we would eventually have as South Campus. So that's the photos for Smith Hall. Barb, I'm going to lob it back off to you, because next on our list is Cardinal
Court.
The original Cardinal Court, not the first location of Cardinal Court.
The original Cardinal Court was built as a result of the veterans coming back from the war and the GI Bill. We knew we'd have a major influx of students coming back, and wow, it was even rougher before it was rough. Wow.
Wait till you see some pictures.
Yeah, it kind of became, it was really married student housing.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers were coming back, they had a wife, maybe a toddler, whatever, and they were living in these, oh, look at the baby.
Yeah, you want toddlers? I got toddlers.
And then they basically eventually got upgraded to concrete block and double deckers and stairways. And Cardinal Court really had its own sense of community, and they had gardens and swing sets. And there was a brief period, oh, there's the cool sign, I missed this. Now you can kind of see back in the background how it's double decker and it's concrete block with bricks around it and stuff. And eventually it became very much an international housing area also. For a while, it housed a lot of the international students that came over because you had a kitchen and you could cook what you wanted and do things like that. Oh, that's another great picture. It was the good news and the bad news. It was still concrete block inside. So it did have a little bit of an industrial look in it. I hope we have a picture of a couple rooms.
Not for this one, sorry. You use your imaginations.
Okay. Concrete block walls, but they still had bookcases and a little kitchen. And it was meant to give you that little family life piece of it when you were trying to go to school. Right before it was torn down and renovated, it became not so much, quote, married student housing, but grad students and PhD students, along with the families, people that really wanted to be a little bit farther off from, quote, typical dorm life, that they had maybe some other focus or something that they wanted to go along with. I always loved that sign and the gardens.
I should throw in for you the current, so the pictures that you're seeing here, the one with the sign, and then this photo right here, this is after Cardinal Court moved from its original location that you saw on the map, which was roughly just south of what is currently University High School. They then moved north of University High School off of Gregory, late 50s, early 60s, which is when you've got this housing that you see on the screen here. And then this was right around the time that I came to the university in 2011. Right around that time is when these were torn down, and the current iteration of Cardinal Court currently stands. And another fun fact about Cardinal Court, they recycled a lot of what you see here and used that as foundational material for the current Cardinal Court.
The current Cardinal Court, that's cool. It's interesting. The new Cardinal Court was very much built with new student needs in mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. All right, it's my turn again. So I have a photo up. Again, you'll notice the demolition of South Campus, and just to the north of that is a photo, or excuse me, is an image of our current Student Recreation Center, which was the former site of what I think some of you will fondly remember of as Central Campus, which was Dunn, Barton, and Walker, which I'll throw in here in a minute. So don't worry, I'm not forgetting Walker. It just was built a few years after Dunn and Barton, so I want to make it its own separate thing. So the circle that you see here, this is roughly Dunn Barton. The circle is going to move when we get to Walker, and it's going to move to the left a little bit and be closer to the street. But this side was more Dunn Barton. The other side was Walker. Now, when I get asked about who lived where, what, and how, Dunn and Barton and Walker all have these histories, right? They all do, don't they? But Dunn and Barton were both founded and both started as women's dormitories that eventually, or I'm sorry, I think I got that one. See, I always mix these up. I believe it was Barton that started off as a women's dormitory and Dunn was the one for men. I got that right. That is correct. Dunn started as men. However, as they went on in years, they eventually took in, they switched, and one building took in women, the other one took in men, and then became co-ed. It was a thing. So all three of the buildings in what was Central Campus would eventually change in who they would take in, and one became honors at one point. So they all had different purposes while they were there. I personally, and I think this photo is in, and I'll put it up. I'm always going to plug the book, is in this book. Maybe, oh shoot, the stupid background's making it. Hold on. Hold on. Yeah, you know it, but this one right here. So that photo, I really love this photo because when I see this, you don't look at those Gothic looking columns and think student residence. I certainly don't. And this is a photo of the dining center that was that serviced the Central Campus students who lived there. I do have some notes and we'll run through these real quick because you're like, well, who was Dunn and who was Barton? Well, Barton was the first of those three. Barton was the first one that opened for women. It was named after Lillian Barton, Lillian Barton, who was the first dean of women at ISNU. She first got her start at ISNU teaching summer sessions in 1903. She became the dean of women in 1911 and served 37 years. This is why she was named for this particular hall. Dunn, again, opened for men. This is what I think is, is this guy? No, this is not the guy. See, again, all three of these people. This was first opened for men, named for Richard F. Dunn, alumni and member of the Teachers College Board. This is the interesting one. He pushed for the use of bond revenues for all three of these buildings. These buildings would not have existed if it were not for Richard Dunn, who changed Illinois law in order for bond revenues to be used to build these buildings without having to use public funds to build dormitory buildings. So it was because of Richard Dunn that we were able to have Central Campus in the first place and to continue building dormitories. Again, both halls saw changes over the years. And let me click over really quickly to Walker so that you Walker fans. So then you'll see there's the circle. It's shifted over to the left a little bit. So Walker was a couple of years after, opened in 1956. And you're thinking, why? They're opening in succession, just a couple of years in between each other. And you're going to see this again with South Campus and then later Watterson, especially in the early to mid 50s, we had an enormous influx of GI Bill students that were coming in and getting an education. And they were using those GI funds here. We didn't have, they were living in local community members' homes at the time. There was no room for our students and we needed to build these dormitories and build them really lightning fast, frankly. So here's a construction image of Walker Hall, which again opened in 1956. It was named for Lewis Walker, who was an alumni and a former board president. So Walker Hall essentially was double the bed size of what was done in Barton. So when they built Walker, it was kind of the cap piece that capped off that section right there so that it was called Central Campus. And they kind of had their own little mini quad, which you can kind of tell from this image right here. So it doubled the size. It was double the size of Dunn and Barton put together. Again, it at one point served as home to International House and Honors House, which for those of you that don't know, I House, especially at that time, was one of the oldest of its organizations in the state. And this is a great picture. You very rarely come across colored pictures in our collections. All of these central campus, so all three of these buildings were demoed in 2016 to make way for the student recreation center that you saw that was in that Google image.
I was so surprised because the dining center that these students ate in was in between the two, and you could go through this tunnel down through Dunbarton Tunnel over to Walker to eat. And I mean, in 1978, it was scary. It was really scary. And there was water and it was creepy. And I came back to campus in 1991 and I'm like, oh my God, it's still there and it's still scary. And losing it. So I was kind of a proponent of getting this fixed because it's like, that's gonna fall in one day and just be ugly. But
yeah, in Illinois, no.
No, exactly. So,
No.
oh my gosh, they're still using that tunnel.
Well, so, and also before I go off to South Campus, and I'll touch on South Campus, I do get requests, and I'm sure I might hear from one or two of you. I still, to this day, get requests from former residents of Central Campus that said, hey, by the way, we buried a time capsule. Was it ever recovered? No, it was never recovered. And if I'm almost certain that it's probably under the student recreation center. So the student recreation facility. So no, I never, as a time capsule was not recovered from Walker. And if it's anywhere, it's probably still in the ground. So sorry, it's still a time capsule. So maybe that's a good thing, I suppose.
It was so interesting to watch it come down though. I mean, it was, but it literally came off like you were slicing bread. Like they would,
when they were demoing
just go bleak, and one little end would fall off. And then they'd come back and one little end would fall off. It was almost cruel, like you're just slicing it instead of just going kaboom.
Yeah.
It was.
For South Campus, when they were demoing South Campus, and how, that was, I had a faculty member who took pictures of the demo process as it was happening. So we have a progression of pictures that show South Campus as it was coming down. So to show everybody right here, so you'll see the quad again, sort of in the upper, just off center, there's the South Quad area, and that circle right there, that yellow circle, again, that is approximately where South Campus located, south because it was south of Central Campus, so it was in the South area. I know, right? It makes so much sense. So the two buildings quickly that I'll touch on, the first is Hamilton Hall and Witten Hall. So when you see them, and if you're not familiar, they're wings that were connected together with these sort of walkways that connected these halls together. My couple of former bosses ago said that it looked to him he said it reminded him of a Soviet era building. I said, well, yeah, maybe it was just that design of the time. But you'll see Hamilton Witten was the one to the north and Acton Colby was the one to the south. And so, and when they went up, Hamilton Hall and Witten Hall were the first ones to go up, and they were also the first ones to come down when they were demoed in 2016. So let me go through those photos. So there's off to the distance, there's some construction photo of Hamilton Witten going up. Now in between these wings, so these four halls that are connected, right? They've got those walking, and you'll see a photo of them in their prime. In the middle of all of these was a dining center called Feeney Dining Center that serviced that whole area. And there are some I get alumni all the time with very fond memories of Feeney Dining Center.
Is that President Bone on the right?
It is Dr. Bone. So Dr. Bone is the gentleman off to the very right in this photo with some other community members. This is the time capsule installation at the Cornerstone when Hamilton Witten was going up. We have that time capsule, but it leaked.
Puppies, yay.
I'm always happy to get, there's a little stinky puppy in there that I get out every so often. I call it Stinky Dog because it leaked and it got water in its time. So here's a picture, an aerial view of South Campus and Central Campus in their heyday. I believe this picture is from the mid 60s, if I'm not mistaken, and how that area looked. This is one of my favorite photos of Hamwit, which is they had ISNU in the lights in the windows at Hamwit. So Hamwit, I should also briefly mention who they're named for. So Alma Hamilton was the northeast wing. She was an ISNU and U High English teacher from 1915 to 1943. Jeannie Witten was the Northwest wing of Hamilton Witten. She was a foreign language professor and department chair from 1919 to 1959. Oh, and there's a really great picture of Feeney Dining Center there. And this is gonna, I believe, filter through a couple more photos and show you Atkin Colby while we're at it. So Atkin Colby, which is its mirror opposite on the other side, was named for, on the southeast wing, Edith Atkin, who was a math professor from 1909 to 1944. And my favorite, June Rose Colby, was the southwest wing, right? I'm a huge June Rose Colby fan. I could go on and on about June Rose Colby. And some of you are like, who the heck is June Rose Colby? Well, she was an English professor. She was the third female educator hired at the university, but really our first female faculty member at the university. And she was also the first female recipient of a doctorate degree from the University of Michigan. So she was named for that hall, and she was at campus from 1892 to 1933, and she's quite the legacy here on campus. So these came down in 2016. I think there's still discussion as to what's going to happen, which way or the other with that space. There's been discussion a lot of different ways. So I'm not going to speculate. I'm gonna let y'all do your Google searching to figure out what's going to go in that space in a later date.
I will. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh, please, Barb, tell us.
Sure, Feeney there too, though.
Yeah. So I'm gonna advance it too, because it's Barb. We're going to Tri Towers, which I love. What you called it. When we were planning this, what did you called this? What did you call this in an email to me?
No, that was Hamilton Witten.
Was it Ham Witten? I thought you were talking about Tri Towers.
Atkin Colby and Ham Witt used to be called the Virgin Towers because it was all. Yes.
It's the Virgin Islands, and I went, that's brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yes. Tri Towers, Wilkins, Haney, and Wright. And I tell you with total honesty, I've been here 30 years, and I would have to look up to tell you which one was Wilkins, Haney, and Wright. It's always just Tri Towers, you know. Just they're all very similar. They're all built of the same blueprint, the same schematic. Take a stab at it.
Yeah, and before you jump in, just so people know where we're at. So we are north of the quad now. So you can't really see the quad in this picture. You can see the Bone Student Center in the bottom right-hand corner. We're crossing the street, and that's crossing Main Street. And now we're in the athletics fields, and Tri Towers is over on the west side of campus in the athletics fields.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or as we like to say in our campus recruitment tours, a short walk to Central Campus. A short walk.
A short walk.
A short walk. There's the three of them, and they are connected in the middle by one dining center that is Lincoln's Dining Center. It was named after the Dean of the Men at one time. This started out really as, like you say, an overflow that we were just in need of places to live. And this is one of the lobby areas on the first floor. We know that. And it's always, and honestly still is, very heavily athletic focused, because you're out there in the land of athletes. You know, you're out there in all the fields and everything, and they practice every day and stuff. So they're up there close. And then we have that dining center in the middle. The thing that I swear I will always remember about these, for several years until we've fairly recently renovated all three of them. And the outsides were, I don't know if anybody lived there then, but the outsides were held up by these big poles that were basically holding it together while we were trying to renovate. And this, I love this, is such a traditional bed, dresser, desk, window. That's what your room looked like. Now, we've since renovated it. And most people are used to walking into the rooms that they have these all the way around, almost like a hotel, right? And then there's a bathroom in the middle that everybody kind of shares. Well, they've totally gutted that now. And the most you have using the same restroom is 3 to 4 rooms tops. It's usually 2 to 3. So they took those restrooms out of the center areas and made them on the outside areas and put rooms in the center. So it's a totally different feel to it. It is just, it's crazy. It's so different, but it's what the students of today want. I mean, I grew up sharing my bedroom with my sister. These students today did not. And they walk in and go, you want me to live there with someone? You know? So that's been a huge piece for it. And having the athletic piece and things. And we also now, if anybody remembers trudging back and forth during snow and ice, we have our Reggie Ride bus system that literally picks up there and brings you to campus. And I used to live on Eastview across the street, and I'd drive by every day and see the kids out waiting for the bus to head on over to the quad and the main campus.
And I think you'll see in this photo, this is one of the many, we have some, what I call cohort photos. So the floors or the halls that are the residents of certain floors and certain sections. I believe this one is Wilkins, if I'm not mistaken. I have it written down. I don't have it in my notes right here. But we have some of those where maybe Tri-Towers or maybe Hewitt Manchester or Acton Colby, or even Watterson, where they took these group photos. I also really love group photos because every so often you do get that one person that's not looking at the camera, has been distracted, like you see in this photo, and I want to know what's distracting them, because clearly they think it's funny. So,
Phil, do you really, like, you recognize somebody?
Oh, really? See, I'm missing out in the chat. We'll come back. We'll come back to this. I want to, when we get to the question and answer, I'll throw the picture back up and we'll see if we'll talk about that.
Gotcha.
All right, let's see.
Where are we at?
So now we're jogging back east. So we're going east to campus. If you look in the photo, you'll see the quad sort of in the bottom this time, bottom just off center to the left. But where that yellow circle is, it's right approximately, Milner Library is just to the left, sort of off in the left upper corner of where that circle is, Milner Library. It's where college splits off right there at Hewitt Manchester. And actually, when I talk about Hewitt Manchester with former alumni, a lot of them actually remember Central School that used to be there, that the university bought Central School, bought that property and bought Central School and utilized it for a little bit before they tore it down in the 70s. But Hewitt Manchester here's a picture of Hewitt Manchester going up. And there you can see in that photo, the old Central School that used to be there. And if you go to the space now, again, Steve Lancaster, hopefully he hears us at some point, who is just our facilities beacon of history, had it arranged to put a rock with a plaque on it that marked where Central School used to be in that space. So you can kind of walk around that space and see that little marker of where Central School used to be. So there's Hewitt and there's Manchester, and then the dining center that services those two towers is the Vrooman Dining Center. So so that I can say that I've done this, let me very quickly go through who all of these are named for. So Manchester, which opened to 800 men, was named for Orson Leroy Manchester. What a name, right? And I'm going to pause for a second and say, I love this photo because they look like they're getting caught doing something they shouldn't be doing. That's what I think. A student will be a student, but I love this photo. So Manchester was named for an Orson Leroy Manchester, who was dean from 1911 to 1928, while Hewitt, one of our presidents, he was our third president, and definitely has some history back behind him. We at Milner like him because he hired Angeline Vernon Milner, our first librarian on campus. But it opened to 792 women, and again, named for our third president, Edwin Hewitt, which is fitting because during his presidency, he tried very hard to get dorm space built for students on campus. This is in the late 1880s, and he had a real difficult time doing it and never succeeded. So it was kind of fitting for them to name Hewitt Hall for Edwin Hewitt. And then, of course, Vrooman Dining Center, Carl Vrooman, they have a house here in town, or the family home is here, and I believe it's a bed and breakfast now. Carl Vrooman was a university supporter who served as an assistant secretary of agriculture in Woodrow Wilson's administration. And then his wife, Julia, who I don't think gets enough credit or get enough shout out. Julia herself was a very supportive community member who was active with the YWCA during World War I and donated a lot of time and money to community soldiers, people in the area who went off to go serve in World War I, and she was very supportive of them and donated a lot of her time and effort to helping those men and women who were Army Nurse Corps, part of the Army Nurse Corps, helping community members. So that's why the Vrooman Dining Center is named for them, because of their help with the community and with the university in its time.
Which actually isn't there anymore. The Vrooman Dining Center became the Vrooman, it's actually just like the Vrooman Center. And
I think it's called the Vrooman Center. Someone's going to correct us, but yeah, it was again, this was not long after I started that they reconfigured that center. And I think it's a student success center, if I'm not mistaken. It's along those lines.
The Julia
Visor Center.
Yeah, the Julia Visor Center is part of it, but it's within the Vrooman aspect of the building. So all those students who live in Hewitt, Manchester, toddle on over to Watterson to eat. So when it gets to be bad weather, last winter when it got so, not this last one, but the one before, when it got so bad, we had to take meals to them because it was too cold for the students to walk over. So we actually took food to them over there from the dining centers.
Yeah, I had never seen snow until I moved up here, and I just kept saying, why every time I go outside, why does it hurt? My face hurt every time I walk outside. Y'all have cold winters up here.
Maureen, there was a fire? Oh, wow. Scary, scary.
I'm missing out on all of it. We'll get to the gossip in a minute. I want to get over to, I'm leaving the best for last. Watterson Towers for Barb.
Woohoo! Fifth floor Playhouse. Yay.
So I'm gonna just to again orient everybody. You'll see the quad. There's the quad off to the left on the bottom, and then there's the circle with Watterson Towers. You can't miss it when you're in town. It's a pretty big couple of towers, but I'll let Barb take it.
Thanks. Well, this was my home that I loved and adored. I can even tell you which windows is mine if we had time here. It was built in 1967, and frankly, it was a bit of an experiment. All the other rest halls were very traditional, almost like a hotel, going down the halls, bed, dresser, desk, windows. And this was built in a suite format that was more like take a wagon wheel, and that spoke wheel is your common area, and the spokes that come out is where the rooms are. And I totally agree, it was a wacky building. At first, their original thought was that we shouldn't let freshmen and sophomores live there because you'll never meet people. You had to be a junior or a senior. Oh, the suite area from one of them, yeah. And eventually then, just because of the number of students, we had to let freshmen live there. You had to. And frankly, it's you loved it or you hated it. There is no in between because it is very different. You get to know 11 people really well. But if you want that Gidget movie where you're eating popcorn with 30 people, you're not going to get that here. That's in one of the rooms that looks like that might might be the triple. Yeah, you could get lost, you could get confused, the hardest part. But the biggest thing now with that, we no longer have the house names. Like I lived in fifth floor Clay House, and those have been changed to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, however high we have to go, I'm not exactly sure. Here's a picture of the dining center. That has been renovated. Holy criminy, you would not believe how different that is.
It's really nice.
When I was first coming back, there was a Ben & Jerry's in the Watterson Dining Center. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? You'll notice a lot of like older uniforms. This is a tray line where we would serve dinner, and a whole lot of stainless steel. Everything was stainless, everything was cold, everything was concrete. So what they've done a great deal in Watterson is try to get rid of that, because it really was, even in the common areas, it was concrete. Yes, they were the first 10 secretaries of state in the United States, 5 of whom went on to become president. But we have been, shall we say, I don't want to say evaluating, that's not the right word, researching the things that have happened in our past here, and we can't change that, but we are checking into not supporting things that maybe hurt people in the past, to try and do that. This is back of the scenes with the cooks. Once again, all that stainless. I remember I worked in the dining center as a student, and I went to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and my job was to start making the lunch sandwiches. By the time I left, they were done. So you know how fabulous the quality was. Now we're all about batch cooking, and it's incredible. I mean, it's just amazing the things they can do.
Mhm.
Also managed to upgrade the crossways and things like that, so it isn't quite so industrial. And the thing my dad will never forget, they added an elevator. There used to only be 4 elevators, and in between when I left and came back, they added an elevator. Because I sent a note to my dad, oh, we're moving in. And he's like, oh, I remember waiting in line. And I'm like, yeah, but they have an extra elevator now. Well, I don't know what we went through moving in. They've got an extra elevator. But it's a finally tuned machine now moving in.
So we got one quick honorable mention because we want to make time for your questions, is Rambo House. For those of you who maybe remember Rambo House in your time here, I put up a very sort of side-by-side photo of where Rambo House used to be. Again, the Student Fitness Center was just to the north on the other side of the street, right behind Fell, actually. Rambo House was built and opened around 1940. It was built at the same time that the then Milner Library, which is now Williams Hall, but it was built with the same WPA funds, war funds at the time. It was built with the same funds in mind. But this residence was used, it was residence and it was teaching space, which is why I'm giving it a quick honorable mention. This was used for home economics. And it was required that people who were taking home economics needed to live there for a semester. And oftentimes there were women who brought their children with them. And so children lived with these larger groups of women up in the top floor of Rambo House. Half the house was gas, half the house was electric. So if you were going to go teach in a one-room school somewhere, you didn't know if you were going to end up with a gas one-room school or an electric one-room school. And this taught you how to work and live within those environments. So Rambo House, at the time that it was built, was far ahead of its time, was innovative in 1940, and did serve as a dormitory for a time. And it was demoed, oh gosh, it was demoed just a few years ago, and I have it. Did I write it down? Let me see if I wrote it down. I did not write it down because I'm a silly archivist, but it didn't come down but too long ago. And we also had a faculty member who took progression photos of Rambo House coming down.
Oh, nice.
Which is, they're gorgeous and beautiful. So if you're ever interested. Oh, go ahead.
President Bowman will tell you that I fought very strongly to not tear down Rambo House. I wanted to turn it visitor center.
Yeah, it definitely, it was a wood frame structure that had a lot of problems, and it was going to cost a lot of money, but it would have been great if they could have saved that and made like a welcome center, or even, maybe we could have housed some small museum pieces in there, but it is what it is. So we've reached the end. We want to give you guys time, give all of you time for questions, but I'll leave this up for just a minute. If you have questions, you want to email us directly. There's Barb's email and there's my email. And we'll be happy to take your questions anytime at a later date. If you have general archives questions, you can email archives@ilstu.edu as well, and we'll be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, ladies. That's so fun. I always learn something new. I think I know so much, but I listened to you for an hour and I learned something every time. So that's wonderful. We did have one question that popped up, but I think I know the answer. So I was about ready to answer it in the chat, but then I started questioning myself. The area on Shelbourne that is currently vacant, it's covered with a fence right now. That was non-traditional student housing also, correct? And now it's offline. I think its fate is to be demolished. And
yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know if that's...
Is that the Shelbourne Apartments?
Shelbourne Apartments is what we call them, yes.
Yeah.
Or what we did call them. So they've been vacant for a few years. And this was...
I think they're getting demoed.
Yeah, and so this was back, I served on a Greek task force. And I know that they're looking at that space at one point to possibly be an area of fraternity and sorority life student living. I don't know if that's still on the table because that was a few years ago that was sort of being assessed. I don't know what came out of that, but that is Illinois State University property. It will stay Illinois State University property for the most I know, but right now it is, I think, just kind of being reevaluated on what they want to do with that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. Okay, we have one more. Oh yeah, one more. That's it. Another question was about that Shelbourne, that Shelbourne space. I think. Okay, wait. It's since the late 1960s when the last dorm was built, and several dorms have been since torn down. So that we get that question a lot. So it seems as if we're losing residence space for our students.
We have.
So I do get that question.
Lost beds.
Yeah, I do get that question a lot from alums about where do the students live now?
They're living now a great deal in apartments and things, but you have to remember too, Cardinal Court houses almost 1,000 students.
Mm-hmm.
It went from several hundred to almost 1,000. Plus, we're in the process of, we actually had we were moving forward with it, but then COVID pushed us back. We're actually going to build another residence hall and dining center.
Mm-hmm.
And because of COVID, that was kind of put on the back a little bit because we lost a lot of money buying, hand sanitizer, a lot of it. But yeah, it is. It's a definite problem. That's why they have been very forgiving with the housing policy, with that live on. They've been very forgiving with that. Almost.
So, yes, and so what Barb is referring to is if you read it black and white, it says that if you are a freshman or sophomore, you need to live on campus. But we've been given more grace to say sophomores that ask for this exemption.
Yeah.
And then we've had to pivot some spaces that are considered student lobby spaces into spaces that are rooms for multiple students. So,
which sounds bad, but it's really kind of cool because
they're huge. So that's a bonus.
I mean,
and they usually have more windows.
They don't want to leave. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not living in sad locations. But
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's not like what it was back in the 60s and 70s, where some, if there's some here on the call or will watch this later that might remember, they came to campus and they didn't have a space and they were, sleeping in sacks in the lobby or in these makeshift bunk beds until they could get a building finished. I mean, it was jam packed there for a while in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So there's definitely that need that's there, but I think it's being addressed. It's being addressed effectively and a little more efficiently this time around. But there's always been a need for housing at this campus since its inception. There's always been a need for housing.
Yeah.
I always look for the rainbows. That means we've got good attendance and interest in students coming, and that's a good problem. It's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. Well, I think that we've addressed all the questions.
One little plug here for, is it Maria, who said, as a faculty member here, I love having lunch at the dining centers from time to time. The food is much better. Just a small plug for my own department. This summer, every Friday, you can get a discounted lunch.
Yes, last Friday I ate at the Watterson, and it was delicious.
Yeah. So Fridays are discount lunch and dinner here during the summer.
Well, I want to thank everybody who joined us for this this webinar. You're getting a lot of praise in the chat. If you could see that, April and Barb. It's always fun. Thank you, April and Barb. If you obviously saw this event being marketed, and you noticed it was a series, and you could sign up for more than one of our series that will go through October and highlight a variety of different things on campus. I think our next one is our athletics facilities.
I
think so. And then we've got College of Education. We'll be featuring some historic homecoming. You'll notice that Barb and I's logos, we are celebrating 100 years of homecoming this October.
I don't care about history or anything. I just threw up the old. Threw up the generic one.
I hope that you all can join us again next month for our next tour. So thank you. With that, we'll say goodbye, good night, and go you Redbirds.
Go you Redbirds. Bye, everybody.
Bye.